So, hi everyone. Thank you for coming out. We are so excited to have Riza Cruz here. She is a CSUF alum and a Pencil Mileage Club alum. She's a very talented illustrator and she has so much to share. So, I'm going to hand it over to her.
Oh boy. Okay. Hi everyone. I'm gonna share my screen now from this point on. All right. All right. So, hi everyone. I'm Riza Cruz. Like Sammy said, I'm an alum of CSUF, and it's a little different, I guess, from what Pencil Mileage Club is used to, but I am not in animation. I'm in illustration and design, so it's a little different talk today. I'm going to give you a little overview of what I'll be talking about. The first part is going to be my intro and background and my journey to becoming a designer. And specifically, I'm a book designer, so I'm in publishing. Even more specifically, I'm in children's. The second part is I'm going to go over the book process, so the design that goes behind that, and then I'll go over two different projects under that section, and then I'll be going over two editorial projects that I did. And the last part is going to be illustration process within the book world. So as a designer in publishing, I work a lot with illustrators, and I'd like to give you guys a little insight on what that's like and like kind of what designers are looking for and where they look, and then Q&A. All right, so my intro and background. I guess that was my intro, kind of. Um, More background and intro. Anyways, my work looks like this. This is my all-time favorite project. A lot of my work is 3D sculptural paper, and this was a 100-day project of robots. And I just love robots so much and making small things out of paper.
So, your beautiful.
Intro background, book process and editorial illustration, illustration process, and Q&A. So 3 parts. So intro and background, my work looks like this. So paper robots, you can see them on my Instagram if you'd like. I already talked about these, but I love making weird abstract paper robots. I love cars and doing sculptural letters. Oh my gosh, I should have practiced this part, but so I like doing lettering as well, since that's kind of hand in hand with design. And a little background on this piece is it's a piece that I was designing on. I was designing a book, and since I'm the designer, I hired myself as the illustrator to illustrate this piece for the book. So that's cool. That's a perk of being a designer, is hiring yourself. A lot of flat. I'm trying to get into more flat paper art. I did this fun Inktober project where I made a kid in a costume out of paper for 30 days. And then this one I got hired on or commissioned to make watches and a purse for fossil watches. And this was before I had a Cricut, so a lot of it is a little funky looking. All right, so that's my illustration part. And so my journey to design. So I started at community college. If anyone's familiar with DVC, Diablo Valley College, that's where I went. And I transferred to Cal State Fullerton as a 2-year student, where I studied illustration, and all of my extracurriculars were in design. So after graduating, I applied to the Chronicle Books Fellowship, and just to let you guys know, a lot of companies have great fellowship programs and internships, so I'd really advocate for looking into them. This one is a year long, and it focuses on book publishing and like really helping newly graduated students in like transfer into the to the job field, career field. Oh, wrong way. I got rejected from the fellowship, and it's because it turns out I didn't have enough typography under my belt because I did technically study illustration at Fullerton. But instead, I got an offer for an internship. So that was just luck. So moving on. I interviewed, and then luckily again, the person I was interning under was leaving. And so I interviewed for the studio assistant design position. Sorry, the video is like covering part of my presentation and I can't see it. Then I got hired as a design studio assistant, and as the design studio assistant, I slowly started designing books. So that position, you are doing a lot of admin, you're doing a lot of emailing and kind of corralling the designers to get what you need. But I was enthusiastic enough and pushed my work on them enough to show them that I can design. And so they started letting me get projects. And now we're at present day where I'm a full-fledged designer / design studio assistant with them. Hybrid role. It's weird. So that's me. That's my professional design side. And that was part one. Let's move on to part two. So book process and then editorial illustration. So the book process. So kind of what I wanted to focus on in this talk is what do you actually do as a designer behind the scenes, because it's very different than what you do at school. And I wish school kind of told you more about this, just because it is kind of like, it's a jarring difference from what I felt like I didn't know anything going into it, but you learn along the way. I am rambling on. All right, let's go. So designing the cover. I'm focusing specifically on designing the cover. And so the first project is called Sleuth and Solve. And on the left, you'll see the first in the series. It's a buy-in from I can't remember which country, but so this is the first book that we designed. And my task was to design the second in the series. So what's that going to look like? How'd I get there? And so I'm going to take you through the book process. So the first thing we did is go through concept sketches. And so this title is called Sleuth and Solve History. And as a designer, you get the original cover and you get the interiors. And so you look through the interiors and you kind of get a feeling of what the book is about. And so this book is about history and solving crimes throughout history. So it goes all the way from cavemen to astronauts. And how do you portray that on a cover? So I came up with 4 different concepts. And then within each concept, from the left to the right, each idea has a couple ideas within each one, which I will walk you guys through. Oh my gosh, I hope this makes sense. So first concept is the characters just like standing around in a circle and there's a crime that has been done. And how I did this is I grabbed illustrations from the interiors and Photoshop them onto the cover. And these are incredibly rough. These are just showing the idea. There's no need to be precious with these. Concept number 2 is showcasing each character within circles. Number 3 is what do you call that? Police lineup. Like, because someone committed a crime, who knows? And then 4 is kind of the same idea as the circles, but within frames, kind of like an art museum. And actually I wanted to show you, so if you can see on the left, there's a detective, and coming from branding, you have to like keep that throughout the whole series. So I'm going to go back for a second and show there's a detective on the first cover. Right? So we should probably keep that concept going, which is shown, oh shoot, here. So this was the final sketch to the Illustrator. And also imagine that there are 1,000 more iterations between each concept because designers are very finicky. So we get here for the final sketch that gets sent to the illustrator, and the illustrator sends us final art of our concept, which is shown here. It sounds very easy, but I swear this project was very intense. So let me show you, walk you guys through what is similar. So this title, can you guys see my cursor? No?
Yes, we can.
Oh, you can? Okay, cool. So Sleuth and Salt, we kept this the same, the branding's the same, added this history in, and then the subtitle is going to be the same. And to keep the same branding, we kept the detective and this cool spot gloss that I'll show you in the final. All right. Oh, shoot. How do I go down? Oh, gosh. All right. So after the design is done, what's next? Because you're not done. It's a digital format, and how are you going to get it to print? So for this one specifically, you work with every book. You have a production team, and for this specific one, each color was a Pantone color. I'm not sure if you guys know about Pantone colors. I'm assuming you guys do. They're cool little swatches that you bring to the printer, and you're like, hey, I need this color to look exactly like that. And so I had to separate the illustration that he sent into 3 different colors. And when you send that to the printer, each color gets printed by itself, and then it gets layered on top of each other, which is a whole new process that I had to learn about on the job. And boy, that was intense, I gotta say. But it's a learning process. So color separated, and then after that, you get proofs from your production person. So whoever you're working with, they check the color, they make sure everything is in alignment, nothing is weird or offset weird. And then you do rounds of revisions after that. And then the book is made, and it exists in the world, and people can buy it. As you can see on the right, though, I did have a little fumble right here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the spot gloss is slightly off, and that's my fault. So that was project 1. I hope that was interesting. And let's move on to project number 2. So the reason why I want to go over 2 different book projects is because every project's different, and I'll explain why this second one's different. So this book, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it is a foreign edition that Chronicle Books picked up from Slovakia. And so what I had to do was design the US edition. So first was the change of title. It ended up being One Small Kindness. And you do type exploration. So again, you look through the interiors and kind of get the feeling and the sense of what this book, kind of feeling you want to evoke with the type, which is one of my favorite parts of designing. I just love looking through type, but I have to admit, I do get sleepy like 30 minutes in. It does get a little repetitive. So I gather like a list of types, fonts that I like, and then I'll put them into a lockup, so a title lockup, and I'll make a variety of them, minor little tweaks, and then from that point, I will do a sketch concept. Please excuse the very rough nature of the sketch, but so this is what I'm doing is I'm taking again illustrations from the interiors, placing them in, and like drawing what I can to convey the concept to the illustrator. And so these were like park scene. I guess I should have talked about what the book is about. The book is about how one act of kindness sparks another act of kindness throughout the whole book. So it's kind of like a domino effect. And we wanted to convey that through the cover, but you can't see it in this sketch. Moving forward, I'll send my concepts to the illustrator, and the illustrator will come back with me with their iterations. And so what she illustrated at the top are like huge, just like kind of not a top view, an up view, angled up view of the park and like characters that were within the park. A more, is this human, eye level view. There's a city in the book, so she did one with that, and then another park scene. But from here, we have a lot of rounds, but I didn't want to show every round because there are many. But from there, I'll give her notes. Sorry, let me go back. I'll give her notes on these. We'll pick one or two. And then again, I'll probably composite what I like and like try to convey my idea again to her. Oh, wrong way. And then I get a revised sketch. So this one, we really pushed the main character and her dog forward, and then added in again characters that are seen throughout the book that once you like read the book, you'll be like, oh, I saw them on the cover, how fun, kind of thing. So from there, we'll see the revised sketch, again, give any notes if needed, and then we get the final cover. So this is final art. I do recommend, if you're an illustrator looking to look into book illustration, to send your files layered, please. Like, the designers will love working with you if you send in layered files. And I do have to mention the book title change to Every Little Kindness, which wasn't a big deal, but little change, like things like that happen all the time. And like for funsies, I I included the whole jacket. So these are on the sides are the flaps that wrap in, and then the front, spine, and back here. So if you think about it, you're not art directing just the front cover, you're directing literally every part of this book. And I do have to say, it's pretty fun to see your name on a book. All right. So let me know if you have any questions about that. So that was part one. So that's all book. I have a lot to say about books. I could go on and on, but I have no idea who's interested in books here. So if you have any questions about it, leave them in the chat. Next is editorial illustration. Again, I'll go over 2 projects. And so these are just my experiences with editorial illustration. And so one project took about 2 months versus the other one was very quick. It was like, I think, a 2-week project, or 1 to 2 weeks. So this first one is a article I did for Medium. So this article, it was someone specifically found me, and it was about, it's tech. I'd recommend reading up on tech because a lot of editorial illustration jobs lie in there. This one is kind of about back-end tools and how important they are to the front end of tech. So here are my sketches. Usually give them 3 to 4 options. First option is like some people hanging around inside the technology. Second is, again, robots. This is kind of my thing, just doing robots with tools lying around. And third was, if you can imagine, these are like hanging, and I'll photograph them. And then, oh shoot, I should talk about it. So I sent these to the illustrator, to the author, and she gives me a little critique and is like, hey, can we actually try this? So she wanted me to do people with like inside a computer, and I tried something, and she actually was like, never mind, let's go back. So she went back to this sketch, and from this stage, I did colored sketches. So again, you do like 3 to 4 depending on how many you offer in your initial contract. I offered 3 to 4. So here's like a gray. All of these are done in Procreate as well. I need to improve my hand in digital illustration, but these are sketches, it's all good. Darker background and then a lighter one. And so eventually she did like this warmer one. And so I believe the next one is final art. So I gave myself 2 weeks and I made this and I shot it about 100 to 200 times. This is photoshopped like crazy, but this is it. And I had a lot of fun. 10 out of 10 would recommend doing editorial illustration. All right. And so my second one, this is going to be a little different from that first job. So that one took 2 months to do. Her schedule was really loose, so that gave me the time to get really detailed with the illustration that I made. This one is for Auto Week magazine. My second favorite subject, cars. So here's my sketch. For this one, I only gave the art director one sketch, and it was about a father and son and like kind of the history of like the bond that you create with your family through cars. Father and son working on the car together. I don't know if anyone ever did that growing up, but I did. All I would do is like pass my dad the wrench and just like watch him. And then in the middle, I gave her a progress update on it. This is not a great progress update. If I was the designer, I'm like, where is the rest of the illustration? But as the illustrator, this is what I had at the time. And then final art. So this is what I delivered. And this had the constraint of only 2-color. And it's a little different with paper because I don't have as many values as if I worked with ink, which I would have like gradations of grays and everything. So I had to kind of be very careful about where I was using the color and the black and the white. So there's that. That was part 2. I am really speeding through it. I feel like, oh, everyone's doing okay. And then part 3, I feel like this is going to be the part where a lot of people have questions. So illustration process in the book world, and then Q&A. So for this section, I'm going to talk about how designers work with illustrators, like behind the scenes, what it's like as a professional, and I believe I put in the second. Yeah, I feel like these are the 2 main questions, which are where do we look for illustrators and what are we looking for in an illustrator? And to answer the first question, it's the internet. Like, just put your work out there on Twitter, Instagram, Behance, if anyone knows that, like any portfolio website, like have a website, and really just put your work out there. What I like to look for as a designer is more finished work. You have to think about, as a designer, you're thinking, how can I use this person? Is this person going to be able to get this job done? Which is, I find very important, which is why I don't post a lot of sketches and things, because it's like, first of all, my sketches, like, not the best. I think my final work speaks much better than my sketches. But yeah, just post online, even share old work. If it's been a minute, you're like, hey, remember when I made this thing? Just because we're always, I mean, who's not on their phone all the time? So I would say all us designers each have our own illustration, like little folder we have on Instagram, on our computers. But also as the design studio assistant, I I'm one of the few people at Chronicle that the portfolio submissions go to me. So I'm also the person that is looking through all the work and making sure that, like, do we like this? Does this fit under Chronicle? Um, I would recommend mailing as well, but honestly, it's kind of, it depends. Like, the internet's free, and business cards and postcards are expensive, and you don't, like, to be honest, I do get mailers like when we were in the office, and I would have a hard time looking through them only because I get so many. It's just a lot. And I would say, it's, for me, this is me. I don't like every person that goes, like, receives this stuff's different, but um I just, the internet. It's ease. Make it easy. Make it easy, period. Um all right. I'm sure there are questions there. Please let me know if there are any questions there.
Yeah. Do
Um
you want me to look through? We have two questions right now, or do you want me to
yeah,
wait till the end?
I can answer them now. Yeah.
Okay, let me look through. So for the first question, from anonymous attendee, how many different places did you apply to for internships before and after graduating?
Uh I I fortunately only had to apply to the one, and I got the one. I got very lucky. So,
That's good. That's great.
yeah.
Um,
Apply to more though. I like I don't know how it happened.
yeah, no, of course. That's great that you got it. So Sunshine asks, can you share your process on paper crafting? Your work is so precise and crisp.
Thank you. Like, making them with my hands
I think you
is
would.
what I'm
Yeah.
assuming. Okay. Um, so I've been trying to get better at having a actual process, because before I kind of used to be like, I think this is 3 centimeters long, and I would just, like, kind of go from there, which is a horrible process because you're guessing the whole time. So what I'm doing now is I'm creating the illustration in Illustrator and figuring out the exact dimensions and measurements that I want. And then from there, I will either, like, transfer it to my Cricut. I used to not always use the Cricut. The Cricut is very new to me. Um, and to be honest, the tech illustration I did was, like, mostly done by hand. Um, so I didn't use the Cricut too much for that one, but use what you can with the Cricut because it is a robot and it'll do a much better job than you than me. And then from there, like, more complex things, I will have to, like, get in and, like, use use a lot of trace paper and draw it and cut it out from there. Another thing I use, if anyone's interested, do I have it here? Is Tacky Glue. Love this Tacky Glue. Um, and have, like, lots of scrap paper to wipe away any excess glue because you don't want those glue marks showing up. But again, Photoshop exists. So my work is not perfect in person. It's perfect because of Photoshop.
Thank you so much. And then we have another question, from Sunshine. Oh, we have three more questions.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, do you want me to keep going?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, cool. So Sunshine says, what was the most challenging project you worked slash experience in freelance on that you learned the most from?
There's a project. I guess it's not in my presentation, but I think it's online. I recently got commissioned to do a window display for 826 Valencia, and I'm, like, debating whether I should. I'll pull up photos. Why not?
Yeah,
I'm
go
gonna
ahead.
stop the share. Oh, hi. Um, while I'm doing this, I recommend organizing your folders. Um, Start now. It may feel overwhelming, but oh gosh, just do it. You will save yourself so much time. Like right now. Oh, I found the folder. All right. So, all right, I guess I'll show this one. So I made this huge, also recommend a hard drive and or iCloud. Very important because it happened where my hard drive broke on me and I lost, like, I don't have any portfolio work from Fullerton actually, which is wild. So back your stuff up, you guys. It's no joke. All right, so let me share this. So this was like, so this is a window display, but this is not in the window right now. It's taller than me as well, if you can imagine. So like 5'7" 5'7" This one I learned a ton about just because the scale is so incredibly different than what I work at. A lot of my work is handheld. It's very small. And this one I had to do, I think, in 2 months. And a lot of the process was planning and learning how to plan. I'm not a big planner and I'm really trying to learn how to be one. So it took a lot of planning, measuring, and I learned a lot through that. Yeah, that's my answer. Any questions?
Well, that's incredible.
Yeah.
We still have a couple more if
Okay.
yeah, if you want to keep answering questions.
Yeah.
So Anonymous asks, what should someone who wants to break into editorial illustration have in their portfolio? What would their portfolio look like?
So okay. I'm sorry, my brain's going in like 3 different directions.
No worries, take your time.
So for editorial illustration, I would first think about like, what are you interested in illustrating? And for me, it's like anything like robot-y. So I think I fall well into tech. And I want to get it, say I want to get into food, which I do want to get into food and children's illustration. You would just have to do more food and children's illustration. Show them that you can do the work, because no one is gonna pay you for thinking that you can do it, which is why I haven't gotten paid to do any food illustration. You know, I don't have any food illustration. So, but it's pretty much just like, do work you're excited about, and it should go from there, if that makes sense. And also I would say, look in magazines, look in books, look at the colophon and see who's the designer or who's the director, because a lot of the time they're the person that is selecting the illustrator, and you could directly look them up online and send them your work. Like, you don't have to go through like the design studio assistant, which is me. You could just send your work directly to the designer or the art director, whoever it is, because they're going to look at their email. So that's my advice.
Thank you. And then we have another question, more so with like the topic we're going with, and then we have 2 more that are more specific questions about something a little different. Do you want to answer those 2 as well?
Let's just keep going. I think we're in the Q&A section now.
Okay. So Savvy asks, what kind of paper do you use for your work?
Okay. So what I use, I go to Michael's and Michael's has these packs of paper. They're like $6 variety packs. They're so good. I have a whole rack. Let me pull some out for you really quick. This is the boringest color that I picked out too. So it's just a cardstock. It's thick, but not too thick. You got to be careful with that. depends on what you're working on. And then it's also a smooth texture. Like I don't like textures in my paper, which is weird because it's paper. You should want to show the texture, but I like to be subtle. Michael's deals. Sometimes buy one, get one free. So I know Nina paper is good and stuff, but it's just like so convenient to go to Michael's. So go to Michael's.
Awesome. Thank you. So Princess asks, she says, "Hi, Riza. I was wondering if you could talk about contracts within the children's book world for illustrators. What should you expect / what should be included?"
Children's book contracts with, okay, that's, I was like, should I show a contract? I probably should legally not show you guys a contract, but what to expect. I'm sorry, give me a second.
Yeah,
Did not expect this question.
Take your time. Take your time.
So obviously they're gonna get like, so they're going look out for the schedule, of course, but also be careful about your rights. So are they gonna own your work forever, or do you still get ownership? Like that's one specific thing to look out for. And then another thing is, right, your payment, how much you're getting paid, your advances, royalty. Are you going to make any royalties? Because, you know, publishers want to make money and you got to protect your own bag, you know, make sure you're getting what you deserve. So, shoot, I'm sorry, Princess. I should email you on the side later because I don't have a great answer prepared. But did that help a little bit?
I think you still answered the question. I think that was
All right.
You
Thanks.
covered the
Thank you.
very important parts. Thank you. We have two more questions. So Maribel asks, "How did you learn to do taxes for freelance artwork or contracts?" She said, "Did someone help you out?" Book reading question mark?
Sorry, I just heard my boyfriend laugh at me. I'm sorry. The question is about taxes and how do I do it as a freelancer? Okay, to be honest, since all of the work I've done as a freelancer has been under $1,000, they're just, I mean, like, shoot, I guess I don't know how to answer the question. My dad helps me with my taxes, you guys. I'm sorry. Yeah, but okay. First, keep track of your receipts. Like keep those invoices, keep track of the receipts, and just fill out that area. I'm gonna have to Google it. I'm so sorry, Maribel.
No worries. There's no shame in having your dad help you. My mom helps me. It's
Still
just,
learning.
yeah, it's a learning process. And Sappy asks, "Can I ask how you store your paperworks / send them to clients if they're commissions?"
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, what I like to do, I like to keep, everyone's shopping online, right? Keep the styrofoam, keep the little air packet things that like mailers send you, and just, how do I, because I know I made these little paper trucks that I had to send to Fullerton. I honestly can't remember how I mailed it, but I think this is another Google question, you guys. Add a lot of stuffing, because you got to think about like how the energy transfers as through, yeah. So that and Google. Next question.
So that's it from our Q&A section, but if I can ask you a question just
Yeah.
before we get back to your presentation. So when it comes to installing your work, like that huge window, 5 foot 7 inches one, did you get to install that yourself, or did you? Because how do you hand over something so precious? It's
Right.
yeah.
So sometimes when you're kind of lazy, you make things like that really easy for yourself. So I knew I had to transport this piece of work from like an hour-long journey. It's in San Francisco, and I don't know if anyone knows it, Pittsburgh Bay Point. If anyone's from the Bay Area, that's where my hometown is. So I had to kind of be realistic about, do I want to hang stuff? Like, do I have to like figure out how to hang stuff? So what I did was I made it into one piece. I'll share my screen again. One second. All right.
Yes, whatever you're comfortable with.
So, oh yeah. All right. So here's me with the house. And honestly, all it is the roof detaches and that's it. And I'm sorry. Am I answering the question correctly?
No, yeah, I asked about like installing it. That one specifically because it goes in a window, and so did you,
Right.
put it in the window and do everything for that? How do
Yeah.
you?
So this is the backside. So all I had was this little stand on the bottom. I think it was like a stereo, and I just put it on there, and that was it. But I know that the installer before me like hung pieces from this wooden bar and like had like I just because let me back up. The person that commissioned me for this did give me sample photos of like previous installations, and it looked like that bottom piece doesn't look very stable for what I wanted to like if I want to do anything crazy. And I knew like I had to pretty much set the foundation for myself. So it just felt really safe to make my own structure instead of having to rely on like the actual display area. So that was my thinking behind it.
I like that. That's very smart. We have two more questions if you want to keep going with
Oh,
questions.
please. Yeah. I was almost at the end of my presentation.
So Anonymous asks, do you have to rent studio space, or does Chronicle have large studios for you to work in?
Um, I just work from home. Um, are you specific? Well, that's it. Okay, sorry. Let me dissect this question a little bit. Because my illustration stuff is freelance. It's on the side. It doesn't have to do like I'm not hired by Chronicle. Actually, but when I was hired by Chronicle, I did get to work at Chronicle in like we have a huge studio room in there with like one table that's just a huge cutting mat. It's a great room. Um, but no, short answer, no, they do not give you a studio.
Okay, Maribel asks, what are the biggest mistakes that an illustrator can make during their first year after graduating?
Okay, you guys. Oh my gosh. So I just worked on a book with an illustrator, and you guys like do not like I'm just like number one rule, like work at 300 DPI or higher, because this illustrator sent in work that was like 196 DPI, and we were in the final stages of the book, and okay, honestly my fault because I should have checked the DPI before like proceeding, and so it's like both on us. But oh man, number one, make sure your work is like high res, and save multiple versions, because um you never know what goes wrong. Like what if you accidentally start photoshopping or drawing on a layer you didn't mean to, and then the history's gone. So, oh man, just back yourself, because if you don't, you got to do it all over again. So that was immediately what came to mind, just because it happened recently, and this was with someone who is not a recent graduate. And also, if you're working on the iPad, like triple check with that, because I think the iPad has been a little finicky. So putting that out there, you guys.
That's all great to know. And so thank you so much for that.
Oh, one more. Sorry.
Go ahead, please. Please.
Color mode. Make sure you know if you need to submit your art in RGB or CMYK as well. All right, that's it.
Also very important. Thank you. So Anonymous asks, you mentioned that you still had to learn about book design while going into that field. What did you do to bridge the gap and learn what you know now?
I was honestly very lucky in that I had a mentor. Shout out to Lydia Ortiz for anyone who might know her. She's also great, wonderful illustrator on the side. She's amazing. Going back to the question, I was really lucky enough to get a mentor, and she really helped me figure out, like, grow as a designer and really feel confident in designing, because you think that you think you know everything, but there's so many things you don't think about, like if you're doing I don't want to like say a story and it's like, wow, that's not relatable and I have no idea what you're talking about, but it's things like kerning your letters, like, oh shoot, duh, I have to kern the letters and make sure that the title looks good, and oh, don't forget like to put the barcode there. It's all little stuff. Oh, someone dropped Lydia Ortiz's ID in the chat if anyone wants to check her out. But getting a mentor, honestly, working on projects just really helps. Trial and error. I've made so many mistakes, but it's kind of comforting to know that everyone makes mistakes, no matter how senior they are. So just be willing to learn and know that you're probably never gonna. That sounds sad, huh? You're never gonna get it perfect the first time, but it's true. And as long as you're excited and keep working on it, like, it's the journey that matters.
Agreed. I think that's like all great advice and so true. Maribel asks, are there any other groups you have joined as an illustrator, as an illustrators group slash society after graduating?
I did. I just I forgot and I remembered right now. I joined AIGA, which is a, forget the long. It's for design, and it's that it's the community's like too big, and I don't really know how to join it. Short answer, no. But I would like to be in a community. Honestly, okay, that's what I really love about Fullerton and the Pencil Mileage Club is it's such a like warm, inviting community, and you have a group of people that you could talk and like get critique from, and just like feel like you have, again, that community to be around. Because okay, it's sad, but not, but it's kind of hard to find that after you graduate. So, enjoy it, you guys.
Thank you so much for answering all of those questions. We don't have any more in the chat, right? Oh, just kidding. Here comes one.
Oh,
So Cassie asks, or Casey, do you have any tips on getting a mentor and how to find a mentor?
okay. Whew, that one. I feel very lucky because I was just the design studio assistant, and I just got along so well with Lydia that it just naturally happened. But I do know, if you follow art directors, illustrators, designers, like any of the people that you look up to, a lot of the times they do offer mentorships, and that I know you have to apply to them. But I would also reach out to them, either asking, like, I don't know if I'd ask if they'd be my mentor, but kind of I would email them professionally and ask, hey, do you know any mentorship programs, or like how did you learn, and like do you have any insight on that? And a lot of the times they do answer, and I have reached out to designers I look up to, and they 100% have answered me. So I specifically don't know how to find mentorships if the illustrator or art director is not um, if they're not offering it themselves. But I would reach out to the illustrators you like, the people you look up to, and ask their advice on that, because either they will, who knows if they'll offer it, really, I don't know, but they will have an insight and kind of guide you a little better.
Okay, so Melinda asks first, what inspired you to get into paper crafting? And oh wait, sorry, that's part one. So what inspired you to get into paper crafting?
um okay, another TBH, to be honest. In high school, there was an art project I had to do, and I didn't want to buy paint, so I found construction paper, and then I found out that I really love working with paper, and then it just kind of went from there. So it was out of, again, laziness of and not wanting to buy paint. So that's kind of how it worked. But I do also I want to add, like, I grew up with my dad working on car models a lot, and like little, like just making tiny things. And my mom is a technician. I finally remembered her job title. She works on like little robots too, like real life machines. And so that, I think like all of that wrapped in one kind of got my start.
As a follow-up, Melinda and Christine ask, what are your inspirations for your work, your biggest inspirations? And then are there any artists or resources that have inspired you?
My inspiration, like illustrators. Should I name specific illustrators?
Really?
It's interesting because a lot of my inspiration, they're not like the same style as me. Like I really love Mary Blair, Ivan Earl, I believe is his name. Michelle, no, L, sorry, L. Misha Alaka. She, I butchered the last name. Yes, thank you, Princess. I know she does backgrounds, I believe, for Steven Universe. But overall, I really love work that is geometric, shapes, like any. Oh man, I could go on and on. What was the second part of the question?
Are there any resources or artists
Oh,
that you found inspiring?
so okay. First of all, just Instagram in general. I have a whole folder of illustrators that I keep. If I ever need some inspiration, Pinterest. I've got like whole Pinterest boards, and oh man, a huge one is children's books. I have a wall of children's books at home, which is probably why I got into children's book design. Um, that's like the overall general one. But those are, yeah, my go-to sources. Also just TV, watching TV, like animation shows. And then you find illustrators through that. So yeah, so
That is so true. Kind of piggybacking off of the inspiration, I have my own question. I've seen a lot of paper cut work, but like one dimension or two-dimensional. But I've never seen three-dimensional paper cut work like the way that yours is. What inspired you to not only just do two-dimensional, but three-dimensional?
Um, I think because I did start off doing flat paper art, but my thinking was, what's the point of doing it flat? Because you could just draw it and it's the same thing. So I think that was one line of thinking. Another line of thinking is my background about me. I love like like I love little tchotchkes and like little things, and it just like makes me happy to like make these tiny things that are like a little object, and just gets the gears going.
It's satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Um,
That was
no, of
well
course.
put.
Yeah, it's beautiful work, and I was wondering, I love it. But Maribel asks, is there anything about the illustrator's job that you dislike?
Like about being an illustrator. Okay. One thing I dislike is having to find the work, you know? Like um just because it's just that like I want the work to come to me, but I know that's not how it works. You got to like do the work to make the work come to you, and that's not what I'm liking right now. Yes. But yeah, that's it.
That's a good answer. Um, Christine asks, do you make small mock-ups out of paper to test things out, or do you dive headfirst into your projects?
I I should do mock-ups. Um I really should. Like this is something I should do, but I don't. And it's because it takes time, you know? But I would say the like when I'm making it, that's my sketch, is because like usually I'm also figuring out how things are going to connect or how things are going to work together. And then I'm like, shoot, I got to do this whole thing again. So that turns out to be the sketch. Short answer is no, though. I should. You really should. It saves you time in the long run.
Just to kind of piggyback off that question a little bit, so do you, even now that you've had, your work, it's amazing, it's immaculate, like someone in the chat
Thank
had said.
you.
But
Wow.
as you're going along, do you still have those times where you're testing something out and you're like, oh, like this probably doesn't work well and you have to start again?
Happens a lot. And I'm trying to have that not like the ratio for not that to not happen as much, which is preparing in the before stage. So doing the sketches, doing your measurements, like doing all the prep work. So I mean it happens, and but like it's always better the second time, right? Because you've learned. Um, yes, it happens.
Okay, thank you for answering. So Angie asks, well, first, hi Riza. Sorry if you
Hi.
already said this, but were you a PMC officer during your time at CSUF? And then in
Oh,
general, what do you miss about school?
oh man. So I was a PMC officer. I was an advertiser with Christine and um, Olivia and Carissa, if any of you guys know them. And what I miss about school is honestly number one, the community, the friends you have, like just being able to like talk to someone when you're like at school. Because as an adult in the job world, you don't, for me at least, you don't have that as much. Um, so the community and like the studios, like having that studio space to do work. I miss that. That is another plus. Yeah. And also, I do have to say the learning environment, because it's really hard to push yourself to learn once you're out of school. Like, you're tired after work. I don't want to keep learning, but to be better, you have to. So, versus, like, it's up to you if, when you're not in school anymore, if you want to keep learning and improving. But in school, you're kind of like forced to learn, which is good. Anyway, that's what I miss.
It's so great to hear that you are an advertiser. We love our advertisers. They work so hard. So
Yeah.
it's so great to hear that. Maribel asks, when looking into LinkedIn opportunities, what other job terms in the search bar can we add for an illustration job? So example, editorial illustration or like vector work.
Um, yeah, put your medium. So what you work in, editorial illustration, illustration. You could like go more specific, like food illustration, tech illustration. Even throw in art director, like just to see what comes up. Art direction. Um, Not photography. What else? Digital. Don't forget digital illustration. Also, I would put in the programs you use. So, like, if you use Photoshop, Procreate, Illustrator, um, that as well. I think that covers most of it.
That is great advice. Thank you. That's a great question too. I've never really thought of that.
Yeah.
And Christine asks, Riza, I don't know if you talked about this yet, but you should talk about your 100 projects.
Um, what about them? I'm just kidding. Okay, I only successfully finished it once, and it was for that robot project. Is there anything specific you want me to talk about, Christine, about the 100-day project? um, Wait, let me reread your question. Oh shoot, where'd it go? Yeah. Is it? What was the question again, Sammy?
No, it's okay. It got mixed answers, but okay. The question is, Riza, I don't know if you talked about this yet, but you should talk about your 100-day projects.
Thank you, Sammy, and thank you, Christine, for helping me out. So, like Christine said in the chat, it is great to do a ton of work because you really do learn from the process. But what I'm learning is, as you're making a large volume of work, to be diligent and deliberate about what improvements you want to make each day. So, say I want to do a children's illustration each day, like focusing on food, like scenes in the kitchen. Um, like, say you should really focus in and make sure that you're making improvements where it matters, instead of kind of just doing the project without thinking about it, which is how I used to work. And I'm trying to break that habit where I think I'm really intuitive, and I kind of work without, I used to work without having a plan and kind of just going for it, which your rate of success, I think, is a lot lower if you go at it that way. So if you do a large volume of work, make sure that you are deliberate in like what you want to improve on. Say like, I want to get better drawing circles while doing this project, like doing your characters. Then and then you'll see the progress. Like I've done it. It works. I hope that does it. Yeah.
Yes, of course. That was great. Like all your answers, all your questions, great advice.
You
We
see me.
appreciate it so much. You're doing awesome. I had another question, just as like a personal question. But when it came to finding your fellowship, what guided you or what gravitated you towards Chronicle books?
Um, okay. So I, again, got lucky in that since I'm from the Bay Area, I knew about Chronicle books ever since I was in high school. And I've like, whenever I went to bookstores, I started realizing that I was picking up books from this specific publisher. And then sometimes you just get curious and you look up, where are these companies located? Which, TBH, I recommend you do all the time in case you want to look for a job and see if they're hiring. Which is what I did. And I was like, hey, they're in San Francisco and I live in the Bay Area. That's cool. And then it turns out that they have a fellowship. And I that's kind of how I landed on the fellowship. Again, I just got lucky. But really just kind of just be curious, I think, is like the main point of it, is like look around and like realize, look at the things you like and then like do a deeper look into it.
That's great. I agree. Deep dives for information. Um, so Anonymous asks, silly question, but have you taken the Meyers Briggs personality test? And what's your personality type? Haha.
Oh man. Okay, I did it twice actually, and I got slightly different answers each time. I took like the 16 personalities one, and the first time I got like INFP, I think. It's like the advocate or something. And then the second time I got ENFP. It's like the same thing, but the E instead. But both times, like my introvert and my extrovert were like smack in the middle. So that's me. My Myers Briggs. Wait, I'm curious. I guess, yeah. Why did you ask that? I'm very curious. Yeah. If feel
Um,
free to answer or not.
I guess we'll have to hear from our anonymous attendee. I'm not sure who asked. Hopefully they can let us know in the chat. But Maribel asks, what weird or hard expectation happens when you work in a team or customer for the illustration?
What's weird or hard? Okay. I think the hardest thing when working with, so as a designer working with an illustrator, I think the hardest thing is making sure your art direction is clear enough for the illustrator to understand it. And I feel really fortunate being an illustrator working in design, because I know what I need to hear for me to understand what in the world I need to illustrate for someone, because it's hard to explain visuals with words. Like that's just not how it works. So I would say, yeah, just art direction. But I love giving art direction. I think it's the funnest thing, to tell an illustrator, hey, this can look better in this and this way. That's the hardest, but I thoroughly enjoy it. It's not critique. It's not like critiquing. It's just like, hey, this is how I can help improve your illustration. And then, but if I'm the illustrator, wait, was that part of the question? um,
Yeah, I think it can be.
yeah.
Yeah, what happens when you work in a team or customer for illustration? Yeah, definitely.
I think so. If I'm the illustrator, if like let's flip it, I'm the illustrator. I think what's hard is accepting the art direction. So, because I feel like every illustrator kind of has a little ego, and just understand that the designer or creative director, they really want your illustration to look its best. And a lot of the times, if you think about it, you're working for a company, you're working for a business or a person, that your illustration has to also be in line with their brand or their company. So it makes sense that they are giving such specific art direction sometimes, that can sometimes be frustrating to follow, but just know they mean well.
Christine asks, how do you choose your color palettes?
I'm a simple lady. I'm just kidding. um, okay. TBH again. This is all TBH. I am simple in that I have a color palette that I really love working with all the time, which is red, blue, yellow, gray, and orange. I'm trying to expand. You know, it's good to change. So what a lot of times what I'll just go on Pinterest or like look at illustrators I like, and then I drop their color palettes. So do that and you'll get a great color palette because they already thought of it for you.
We appreciate all the TBH, your honesty, everything. It's great.
You.
Mark asks, how do you combat introvert tendencies when trying to advocate for your work / putting yourself out there?
Oh man. I stress out about that all the time. How do I sorry, see the chat. How do you combat introvert tendencies? Well, it's interesting because I'm half introvert, half extrovert. And it's just you kind of so it's going to be scary all the time, right? And you kind of really just got to like live with that fear and just push through it, because no one's going to see your work if you don't talk about it. No one's going to see your work if you don't put it out there. And you got to do it. That's so good luck, you know. I hope yeah, good luck.
Thank you so much for answering all those questions. And I was just going to say, let's go back to your presentation, but we got another one.
Oh, okay.
So Christine says, Riza Net, what is your experience being a Filipino American working in art and in publishing? What advice would you give to brown artists graduating and / or trying to make it?
That's a great question. So my full name's Riza. If anyone's curious on why she said that. So this is interesting in that, so the book publishing world, if anyone knows, is incredibly white, and Chronicle's very white, and we've been it's complex and complicated, but I would say sorry, I am trying to get my head around this.
No worries, take your time. It's a very important question, and
right.
We're so glad, Christina. And by the way, Reasonette is such a beautiful name. So
thank you.
But go ahead, please take your time.
It has its ups and downs. Like it's of course. I'm like, I don't like, how much should I say? How much should I not say? Can you repeat the question, Sammy, if that's all right?
Of course. Christine asks, Reasonette, what is your experience being a Filipino American working in art and in publishing? And then she says, what advice would you give to brown artists graduating and / or trying to make it?
Okay. So as a brown artist, it's kind of weird. I feel like complicated. It's kind of your time to shine right now. It really truly it like it's now, like kind of. All right, now saying that, really just like lean into who you are and your culture if you want to, and really just be proud and like put it out there, just because I feel like not long time ago, but probably when I was younger, I wouldn't have illustrated so many things about me being Filipino. Like I probably would have just like, I wouldn't think about it. I would probably illustrate, not brown people, because that is like what is seen. But I think it's a turning point, and I honestly think now is the time to like pitch your books and like really lean into who you are. There was a part of the question I wanted to answer, which is how is it like working in publishing? I feel it feels complicated sometimes, because like I am one of the few people of color that works in publishing, and sometimes you do the pressure to be that voice for others in the room is really complicated, and I know we're all really dealing with that at work. I know Sandy's here, one of my coworkers, and I would say like it's complicated, but know that your voice is incredibly important and you should speak up if you can. I know it's like some of our publishing shoot, I don't know if I should say this. One of our publishing groups is like all white, and I'm like, you guys, I think this is a problem. Where was I going with that? But it's complicated, and I'm reading the chat. Yeah, find your people and support each other. We did form I think it's technically like a POC group at Chronicle, where we really do feel comfortable talking to each other about events that happen out in the world and that happen at work. Just because sometimes it's like some of your coworkers, they don't understand. They just really don't understand. And having to deal with that every day and not having anyone to talk to can be a struggle. So form your group, whoever it is, whoever you feel comfortable with. And as an illustrator, I don't have as much experience just because I'm in publishing like every day of my life. But we'll give an update as a person of color as an illustrator when I get more experience.
Thank you so much. Very important answer to a very important question. So I appreciate you taking your time. And go ahead and take your time with any of these questions. Don't even worry about it, but thank you so much. So yeah. Maribel asks, how has COVID changed your work process? Stress? Question mark.
Sorry, yes, so much stress. Okay. Speaking as a designer, I'm again very lucky in that I have a job that I still have that I can work from home with. Again, I feel very lucky. My work was able to lend me a working laptop that I could work from home with. It's stressful in that you like feel the stress of work, but you're in a home environment. It's like really weird and complex, and you don't have like that commute home to like be frustrated at. Instead, you're just frustrated and you're at home, and then you like take it out on your brother. Sorry, brother. But I do have to say that I don't miss my commute. My commute used to be like an hour 30 one way. So don't miss that. I don't have that stress, but work stress is work stress, and that's never going to go away. So.
Thank you. So I think now we can finish the presentation if you want to. No pressure.
Yeah, I can. It's just a couple more slides, so I can show you guys. I can share what I have. All right. Oh shoot! Did my sharing pause? Sorry.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Try again. Sorry.
Is it yet there? Okay, cool.
Yes, thank you.
So, all right. What do I got next? Oh, so what I wanted to share was kind of just to finish off are a couple of books that I worked on, and I wanted to show you guys the sketch versus the final art. So this was a flat book. It's like, I just love seeing this part of the book process and seeing how rough everyone's sketches are. And I just like, this is what gets me going, you know, the sketches. Because it feels, I think when you see people's sketches, it feels possible. It feels like I can do that. I can like be an illustrator because look at their sketches. I can do that. So going back, this is this one's called Search the Castle. It opens like 2 different ways and it has a ton of flaps, and I learned so much. This was one of the first books I designed on. It was incredibly complicated, and being able to work on this was really cool. Anyone have any questions, I guess, about this book? Another book I have is, so I'm going to show 3 different slides of this one. So it's going to be sketch, revised art, and then final art. This one is coming out, I believe it's out, or it should be out soon. This one's called Over and Under the Canyon. So this is a really great illustrator. I love seeing his sketches because his final art is, I feel like, way tight. So sketch, here's his revised sketch, which I honestly think is like pretty much almost there. It's wild. And so from this stage, what we would say is like, hey, lighten the sky up, or like giving him critique is like almost saying nothing because he does such a good job and we've worked with him for so long. So if anyone has any questions about that. But I would say the downfall on sometimes giving like a really tight, like this kind of thing is like, if you do end up having to revise a lot, then you'll just have to do work again, which, I mean, if they give you a lot of notes, you're gonna have to do it anyways. And then lastly is final art. So like, I just love seeing this transition. It's like very satisfying to me. So this is his final art. And guys, 300 DPI and above. Oh, another important, write this down, add some bleed. Oh, add bleed to your artwork because then I gotta add the bleed for you if you don't add it. And that was it. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for sharing. We have another question.
Yeah.
If you want to keep answering questions.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So Princess asks, as a designer, are you working on the whole book and collaborating with the illustrator on it, or are you solely just working on the cover with them?
So it truly depends on the hey Madison. It depends on the book. So for the 2 projects I covered, Sleuth and Solve History and then Every Little Kindness, those 2, they were buy-ins from a different country. So all of the interior art was like, I did not have to touch. But like everything I did for the cover, like that's all me. But I am working on other titles where I'm like fully designing the interiors as well. What is like something I just worked on? Oh, I didn't include it because it was another really long project I was going to show you guys. But it's the answer is yes, I think. Yeah, yes is the answer.
And part 2, secondly, are you working off of compositions that the illustrators already have and providing notes, or are you the one providing all the compositions from the start and the illustrator goes off of that?
It again depends on the project. So for example, for Every Little Kindness, where I'm really like giving them a super loose sketch of like what I'm thinking, and then it's really up to the illustrator, like, hey, this is the composition I'm going to give you, but kind of what I'm laying out is where's the type going to be and where where should the illustration lay. So that's kind of like what what I do. And then I mean, it also depends on your designer as well. Like, how much do they want to flesh out for you to give to the illustrator, or they can it's like every project's different. So you can expect both. You can expect all of it.
Anonymous asks, can you show us examples of what bleed is?
Yes, I can. Let me find a project. Okay. I'm going to show you guys a project that I'm working on right now at work. And it's not out yet, so.
So our rule of thumb, no
I'm
pictures, please.
No, I should be fine. I think it's going to print now. So let me share my screen. All right, so this is a book called, it's a finger puppet book called Baby Yeti, and this is a little finger puppet book. So the bleed is right here. So this is the die line. This pink magenta color is where the book gets cut. And then you usually want to add in a 1/4 inch bleed or 0.25 bleed beyond the artwork, just because like if the book does end up shifting, you won't see white if it gets cut off. So that's some bleed. Hope that here's a little cute. I love these little yaks. They're so cute. It's another book I worked on.
Thank you for showing us that. Everyone in the chat is saying how cute
Oh my God.
is. I agree. So cute.
We do have to say 1,000 DPI is too much DPI. So
Annie asks, how long is the turnaround from sketches to rough for your illustrators?
So what I'm learning as being a designer, going from so there's a schedule laid out for each book, right? And say this book is being printed in August, they give you a rough timeline of like when should you get final sketches. And there's a person called managing editorial in books, and they're one of the few people, I believe, that figures out the schedule for you. But I guess it depends. It's going to depend on the schedule, first of all. But my illustrators, I give them like a week or two. Yeah, week or two, give or take. And then we always update each other on if they need more time or anything, because we can always adjust the schedule. I do have to say, one time though, an illustrator just like completely dropped out, and I'm like, hello, where are you? And it was wild. I was like, am I gonna get art? And just answer your emails, just let me know if you're gonna drop out, because it will stress your designer out if you do that.
Definitely fair point. So Anonymous asks, what program do you use for formatting books? What do your illustrators use?
So for formatting books, I use InDesign. If anyone's is familiar with InDesign, it's an Adobe program. And if you honestly have it in your schedule to take, I would 100% recommend taking a typography class that lets you learn the program, because me as an illustrator, it's helpful because I'm a designer, but I think as an illustrator, like knowing how the program works and knowing what the designer is expecting, or whoever you're giving the art to, like knowing how that's going to be formatted later on, it just makes you a more powerful tool. So I use InDesign. And then, I'm sorry, was there a second part to the question?
Yes, it was also, what do your illustrators use?
Oh, illustrators that I use, or that what did they use? They use Most of the time they use Photoshop. I've had someone use Procreate, but they give me Photoshop files. Um, if it's original art, we get that scanned at a fancy scanner in like Seattle. And then we if the illustrator scans it themselves, they will usually deliver large TIFF files, TIFF, which are great, better than JPEGs sometimes. So
Maribel asks, and I don't know if this is, you don't have to answer like with numbers or, you know,
okay.
you just let us know, but do you get paid per hour or per project?
For editorial specifically, you get paid like a flat fee. Um, and that you always Google it, but for me, it's ranged from 100 to 350, I believe. I feel like that's high, but that's like kind of the range for editorial illustrations, which are just one illustration. And I will also have to say, I'm kind of at a disadvantage because I'm working with paper, which does take more time, and I would usually charge more. But if you want to be competitive in the editorial world, that's kind of the range that you're working at.
Thank you. So generous with your answer. Marlia asks, hi Riza, when the book you're working on is going to print, are you the one ensuring the colors are correct?
It's not really me. So, I mean, yes. Okay. Wait, let me start over. So, every book has a team, a book team, and the people that are really paying attention to the colors are your production team. So, it's your production designer and your production developer. I believe it's mostly the production designer. So that person is the one who's receiving the proofs from the printer. They're the ones like they have like a little magnifying glass and they like check all the color out. They check the color against the Pantone, and then after they do their check, they usually show the designer and then have the designer will approve it and be like, hey, actually I want this like a little lighter, or I want to deepen the color. And then the production person will do those revisions for you. So you are handling the color, but they're really like the technical people of that part, production.
Thank you. I had a question.
Yeah.
When now that you're in the publishing industry and you're a freelance illustrator, do you ever have moments where you deal with imposter syndrome? And if so, how do you handle that?
Oh man. Um, Still trying to figure it out. I 100% have it. Um, okay. I, this one solution that I have to implement myself, which is I really think kind of lining up your accomplishments in like that you've done like every in your past, like looking back at your work that you've made. I think that's one way of really helping. I have to get better at that because my brother, I'll complain to my brother and say, I'm not good, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, you need to relax. Look at all this stuff you've done. like, so it's kind of just like, don't forget the accomplishments you've done and like all the work you've done because it's important. Like, I know it's easy to forget and it's really easy to feel like you're not good enough and you're like, who am I to think I'm an illustrator? But you are. So just don't talk to yourself like that.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for sharing. Another question. So, on campus, you have your pencil truck, and then it's like an ice cream truck, and I can't remember the third one right now, but they're all those.
Donut truck.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. They're those three little trucks that I think were bought from the ASI art show. What
Yeah.
inspired you to make all those trucks? And specifically the pencil truck. I love
Oh
that
man.
one.
Thank you. Um okay. So, I remember that summer I was just really bored and I was feeling like really stuck because I had to go back home first from school. I'm like, I didn't feel like I wasn't accomplishing anything. And so I'm like, again, it's just a project that you feel like doing that like to, and you just do it. And I love pencils. Like I love making pencils. They're just like, and everyone uses a pencil. Everyone can relate to a pencil. So I think, and I think food trucks were really big at the time. And so I kind of just it just, that's how it grew.
Thank you. And then also, what advice do you have to artists out there who maybe want to start getting into paper art and more specifically three-dimensional paper art?
Oh man. What advice? Start simple, because if you take on too much, you're gonna really feel overwhelmed easily, I think. But what I would start is like look up paper artists that you love, like want, like are interested in, and like see their body of work, but don't get discouraged when you look at their work, because a lot of people are really great. Um, and then again, I would say like find a subject you're really interested in and just make it, just like explore, just be curious. um I know that, I mean, again, I really like robots, and so I felt like making a robot, and you just kind of follow your intuition in that way. So just start. Don't think too much, but like think a little bit. Is my advice.
Thank you. Kaylin asks, what does the paper crafting process look like with the Cricut?
Oh, with the Cricut. Okay. So with the it's interesting. It's a slightly is it different? It's different because I'm adding an extra step, and with my hand, how do I answer this? Okay. So with the Cricut, you have to anticipate the machine, because the machine is just going to follow your lines, and you have to kind of understand how paper works, how paper folds, how it's going to like react with the cuts that you make. So uh, kind of just having to anticipate. I feel like I'm getting away from the question, but the process is, I think for me, it involves a lot more. I see the chat. A little more planning, only because it's kind of like you're trusting the Cricut to, it's like, it's a different mind. Like you have to anticipate it, and it might not cut the way you want it to sometimes if you thought it's, see, again, it's like trying to explain a visual with words is funny, but I hope that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. So Anonymous asks, how/where do you store your 3D paper works? Do you ever throw them away? Um, it seems like it would take a lot of space.
um I throw them away. Well, it depends. If I kept a lot of pieces that I like, but really, like, if someone doesn't want it, or someone doesn't want to buy it, or I just throw it away. Because it lives as a digital piece in the end, and like there's just some work where I'm like, I don't want this Thanksgiving illustration. So just gotta let it go.
Thank you. I was also curious about that. So,
Yeah.
and then Maribel asked if you've ever had to translate a different language for a cover/book project. And I think you touched upon that with your one small kindness, right?
So we actually do. Chronicle does buy a lot of, so they're called buy-ins, where you Chronicle acquires books from other countries, and we translate them, but the designer doesn't have to translate it. It's the editor. That's the editor's job. So yes, we do.
And for our last question of the night, Savvy asks, do you have a shop where you could possibly sell the pieces you don't want to keep?
I've struggled with this in that I feel like no one wants to buy my art, which is the imposter syndrome that we talked about. And I don't have a shop. The answer is no. I mean, technically I do have an Etsy, but it doesn't have any work on it. And it's because I feel like my work specifically, I feel like when I try to sell it, people don't want it. That's a me problem. That's an imposter syndrome problem. No, I don't have a shop.
I have to disagree. That Steven Universe, I want that. The pencil truck, I want that too. I would want
Thank
anything that you would make. So yeah, but thank you so much for coming out, speaking to us for 2 hours. You did so well, and we appreciate it so much. So yeah, if you want to wave goodbye to the people. But yeah.
Yeah, I had a great time talking, answering these questions. Thank you guys for having me. I'm so honored to have been asked by you guys because I remember watching these panels and they were always so informative. So happy to be the one giving information this time. It's very cool.
Yeah, thank you. And you gave so much great and important information. Your perspectives on everything were just impeccable. Thank you so much.
And again, yeah, email me. Feel free to reach out if like you guys have questions beyond this. I will try my best to get to them.
And thank you so much for that. That's so generous. Yeah. And just to plug your Instagram, Riza's Instagram is Tiny Paper Lab. No underscores or anything, just one word, Tiny Paper Lab.
Thank you.
So yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.